Good morning. So this is the second session, right? Everybody went to something interesting in the first session? Hopefully? Good. It's a good room. My name is Kevin. I'm the VP of Operations for FRSecure. We are an information security consulting company. If you don't know what that means, we'll talk about that, definitely. And what we're going to talk about is the risk of people. And I'm going to try to stay out of the lamp thing. But I like to move around a little bit, so I can't make any promises. This particular presentation I've done maybe 5-6 times in the past 12 months. And it definitely works better if there's participation. So there's a warning, otherwise we're going to stare at each other a lot. So where's my talkers? Do we got people that will freely admit that they're talkers? You? Nobody, huh? All right. Well, you can't say that I didn't warn you. So, all right, we're going to jump right in here. This is what we're going to talk about today. Just an overview for the heck of it, but we're going to jump right into a little bit about us. We are an information security consulting company. We do things like security assessments, compliance assessments, network security assessments, wireless, infrastructure assessments, those kind of things. We also do program development, so for companies that need policies, procedures, SIEM, whatever, right? We do that as well. So we'll go more along these lines a little bit later. So here's some of the assessments again that we do. We have our neat little circle here. Just by a couple quick shows of hands, who's here from a company with more than 1,000 employees? Okay, so everybody's a couple, but for the most part smaller. Okay, who here is IT? Would say that they're IT. Just about everybody. What else do we have? HR? Marketing? Okay, so mostly IT. All right. And within IT, hardware, software, architecture, those things? Okay. All right, so when we talk about information security, a lot of people are under the impression that security is a subset of IT, right? And most of the IT guys or people in here would probably say, yeah, that's true. IT, though, is focused on one component of security. And we spend a lot of our time on why information security is a business issue. It actually encompasses IT. There's absolutely a security component to IT, but there's a bigger picture to information security than just IT. So that's what we try to work on, is understanding that. So this is where we're going to spend most of our time today. It's kind of right in here. And how to, developing good training and awareness programs. If I was going to ask, okay, so here's a question, IT folks. What is the biggest, if you had, we're trying to prevent a breach of information, right? What would you expect to be the #1 cause of a breach? What's your #1 security risk? There you go. So you all got the right answer, right? But in your daily practice, is that really the answer that you base your business on? That's kind of the other question. All right. So here is our principle, right? People do present the most significant risk. There was a poll done by, I think it was ISSA or FRSecure or somebody like that, where they asked people in our profession, information security folks, what's, in one word, what's the single biggest risk? Most of them answered something like network security, fire. They couldn't even get one word right. They asked for one word. They couldn't even get that part of it right. But really, it was all very focused on technology. There was, though, the overriding, or at least more people voted just people are your single biggest risk. So that's what we're going to talk about. All right, participation time. I have a prize. All right, so give me an example of a typical way people lose sense of information. There you go. I didn't even give you the answers. I didn't even make this that hard. What else? What was that one? Hard drive failure. Okay. What else? Flash drives. Social engineering, good, all very good. All also up on the board, and that's okay. With the hard drive one. All right, encrypted flash drive, you get that, because you were first. Good catch. Okay, so we're going to move on from there. Yeah, there are all kinds of ways that people lose sensitive information. A lot of the time, they don't really even know that they're doing it. They don't really even understand what's the value of the information that they're working with or dealing with or storing in their head or on their cell phone or on their laptop. They don't really, from a corporate standpoint, they don't understand the value of that information, and they don't realize that they give it away all the time. So that's what, how we work on our people to help them understand. Now, again, quick show of hands, who's in leadership positions? Okay, we got a bunch. Good. That's good. So what we're going to try to do here is we're going to try to blend, okay, you got your own personal information that you give away all the time to your bank, right, to your credit card companies, to your mortgage officer, to your hospital. But then for the leaders, you have to also take that and apply that within your, as a family, you can take this stuff home to your kids or your spouse or whatever. All right, class participation again. What is information security? Who's brave? This one takes bravery. Anybody? What's that? Okay. Education for people that have information. Anybody else?
Security of information.
There you go. Security of information. It sounds funny, but he's not wrong. So that's good. All right. Fundamentally, here's what we're talking about. When we talk about information security, it's using technical, physical, and administrative controls to protect confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA. So, this is the wrong CIA, but hopefully it'll help you remember the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, if you're just taking an IT security slant, you are going to focus here, right? Firewalls, antivirus, all that stuff. We're going to miss these two, and we're going to focus on availability, because really, what's the function of IT? Is to keep the network up and relatively safe, right? But enable the business to work through technology, right? So they're more focused on availability than either of these two things. So you can see very quickly how if you try to shove information security in an IT box, that you lose out on some of the core concepts of good information security. All right, why are people risky? A lot of words, don't expect you to read it. What it says is people are unpredictable. It makes sense, right? Okay, I know you're a talker. Don't try hard. So where are you from?
Partners in job training in Boston.
Okay. Where were you? What are you from? Davenport?
Record.
Okay. I'll pretend like I know where that is. Is that a big city? Okay. How many people?
I have no clue.
Okay. Where'd you go to high school?
Westmore High School.
Westmore? Okay. And when you were growing up, were you a family with pets and stuff?
Of
Okay. And you had some, dogs, cats? Okay. And what was the name of the street you grew up on?
Washington.
Washington. Okay. So now what did I just do? Exactly. He got it exactly right. I know two of the three resets for her, and she knew I was doing it too. I didn't coach her on it or anything, but she was playing along, and thank you for that. But in just casual conversation, who on their Facebook has the school they went to high school at, right? Street you grew up on. What your mom's name is. I noticed that on my Facebook it says who my mom is, right? Well, how hard would it be to find her maiden name? It's not. So, it's probably right. So these are all things that people need to understand, and that's not to say that we don't do them, right? It's not to say, hey, don't ever talk to people, right? That's not the goal here. The goal is to understand that there is information that you possess that has value, and that any piece of information, as soon as it's created, there's a risk associated with it, right? So I don't care how secure your database is. I don't care how well segmented it is. I don't care how your firewall is configured. The fact that you have a piece of information that doesn't belong to you means there's a risk associated with it, and we've got to protect that risk. Okay, so people are unpredictable. So here's one of the reasons why, right? People have a certain, we just want to trust each other, especially here, right? I come from Minneapolis. We trust each other in Minneapolis too. We like people. We want to be able to trust people, but that can cause us some problems. You guys have all heard the term, at least, social engineering? Yeah? Yeah? All right, so here's a social engineering example that you've all seen, right? I just pulled this one out of my own email. This is a phishing scam. You get these all the time, right? You probably have 4 of them that you've gotten today already. No, so here's the question, especially for you IT leader type folks and HR as well. Who in here, this is the first time they've ever heard of a phishing email? That's about what I expected, right? Now, the second part of this question is, do your kids know what a phishing email is? How about your employees? Not just IT employees, but how about your manufacturing, the people on the floor, right? Do they know what a phishing email is? Another quick show of hands. Who in their corporate training program has ever had anything that talked about what a phishing email is in their corporate training? A few. That's good. That's more than I expected. So that's good. Now, how often does it happen? Do you continue that? Maybe you do, and that's great. But if you don't have that, then you are exposing your company to a risk that is completely unnecessary, because this is one that everybody should know by now, but there are people that don't, right? So you need to make sure of that. And by the way, from our standpoint, we as a company are trying to accomplish really 2 things. We're trying, A, to protect information, right? And B, make the company defensible. Information breaches happen all the time. How big they are kind of determines what the fallout is, right? But they happen all the time. The question is, are you as a corporation, I don't know if we have any people that own businesses in here or that are liable for some business activity, but you need to also keep in mind that you have to be defensible. So if you have an employee who gets a phishing email and they click on it and that leads to a breach of some kind of personal data and the company gets sued, how are you going to blame the employee? Should they have known? Yeah. But as a corporation, you're still going to be responsible for that. All right, example number 2. You get calls, right? Especially, anybody in here have purchasing power? You get some phone calls, right? This one, there's one that we do occasionally for clients where we'll go in, we'll dress up, we'll send somebody in dressed up as an energy employee and just see if we can get to the server room and be left alone inside the server room. It works more than you'd think it would work. We also, one time, more than one time, but a hospital, critical access hospital, we walked up to the front desk and we said, can you point us to your medical records department? I wasn't wearing a badge or anything, right? I looked just like this. Can you point me to your medical records department? They got on the map, drew out on the map where it was, wandered back there, walked in, and stood there. There were some people over there. We waved to them. They waved back. And after about 10 minutes, we got bored and left, right? We were in the middle of their paper records department. We could have done anything that we wanted to, right? It's a training issue. It's a people issue. Nobody thought to ask us what we were even doing there. Okay. Next one, behaviors, moods. We all know that we have good days and bad days, right? But what's the risk to either, again, we can tie all these things to both family and business because they really apply in both directions. So what's the risk of breaching information based on mood? Now this one is kind of a hard one. We all get this slide and what this is trying to say. You're in a bad mood, somebody wants you to do something, you don't feel like doing it, so you sort of do it reluctantly. Okay, but what's the actual risk to something like that? Let's see, a bunch of IT guys. Any web developers in here? Yeah, one. We got some HR folks. Okay, let's say you're a web developer. Do you, when you guys release new code, do you have a change control process? So you just can push code to production? Yeah. Okay, so let's say that you're in a bad mood one day, you're finishing up a project, you're under a deadline, and you don't, you've tested, is it just a simple, you added a couple fields to a form, it's easy, you just push it out there, right? Who knows what a SQL injection attack is? A web developer, right? There's a couple of people, right? It's a type of attack that you can do on a web page when you can put in a form. Like if you typed your name in when you registered for here, there's a potential for what's called a SQL injection attack there. Now, if he's not doing his job because of, fully because he's having a bad day or whatever, there is a risk for something like that getting by. How about, HR, you're dealing with employee records. I don't know, say your boss comes to you one day and says, hey, can you take this spreadsheet with all of our payroll information and can you email it to our president over there, right, so he can review it. And you just, by accident, put in the wrong email address. Fire it off, right? This kind of stuff happens all the time, and we've got to really pay attention to these kinds of moods and things. All right, we're going to move on. I don't like that one. This one actually happened last week to a customer of ours. They had somebody who was in the hospital, and a coworker came back from the hospital visit. They were excited, and they fired off an email just to their department saying, hey, she's doing great. Here's where things are at. What did she just do? HR? What'd she do? HIPAA, right? Violated HIPAA. Now, if it might have all been true and good-natured, right? Her reasons for doing it were right. But what she did was give away personal sensitive information. And that's the basis for a lawsuit right there. So what does a company do? You can't possibly prevent this from happening, right? The only thing you can really do is train your people on this is, we know you want to spread the word, right? But this is not appropriate. Here's why. This is confidential information. It is not free for us to just share about people. And now make your company defensible. Right? What they did was, because they have an incident response, they knew exactly what to do with this. They grabbed it. They talked to the employee that sent the email immediately. They contained it. Right? And they put into motion their incident response program. It was very simple in this case. This is not a big data breach, right? This is just one thing. But it is the basis for a lawsuit, so you have to tackle these types of things as well. Desperate times call for desperate measures. You can't. They have to do it. It's not your information, right? The person that is in the hospital has to do it themselves. So what they can do is send an email and just say, hey, could you forward this? Here's an update. Could you forward it to the team? Something like that. That's them doing it. That's not you doing it. Ultimately, it comes down to who owns the information. You don't own it, right? You're custodians of it. Right? If you've got it in a database somewhere or you have it in your head, you're a custodian of that information, but it's not yours, and you don't have a right to do with it whatever you want. Spouse can get gray. Again, it really comes down to if it went to a lawsuit. If it doesn't go to a lawsuit, then ultimately, this is a small breach, right? But if it does go to a lawsuit, it's ultimately going to come down to what the judge decides. So from a company standpoint, you can say, we train on this stuff. they knew better, they made a mistake, we contained it, and we responded to it, that's a much better position to be in than, well, their spouse said we could do it, right? So that's the idea here.
I mean, we get this type of stuff all the time. I mean, we had, we work with multiple cities, so we had recently a planner in one of our towns had a stroke, so brought his emails went out once he passed away. But if anybody wants to visit him, this is where he's at. Obviously, he couldn't speak for himself.
Now there are it's still not yours. It depends, though. Let's be really clear. But let's be really clear about what we're talking about. Is we're talking about confidential, personal information. If you are, which can be related to health, and unless you're do we have any HIPAA experts in here? Yeah, I didn't think so. You?
I'm not an expert.
Yeah. So there are things that you can do and things that you can't do. Things that you can't do, and but again, it depends on what HIPAA says today, which might change tomorrow. But in general, if you're talking about, they're doing well, they asked us to communicate with everybody that they're doing fine, stay away from things like this is their illness, right? Or this is what hospital room they're in, unless they specifically ask you to let people know that. Just from a business standpoint, that's a breach, and that needs to be treated very carefully. I know sometimes it can be a pain, right? Because you want to get information out. But the reality is that it is a potential for a lawsuit if we're not careful. So from a business standpoint, you want to be helpful, but you also got to be careful. Right? All right, back to this one. Desperate times call for desperate. Any sales in here? Salespeople? All right, you get so from your perspective. Let's say I'm a sales guy for your company, right? And I quit, or I get fired, or whatever, I get laid off, and I go to work for your competitor across the street. Would any of you be all that surprised if you found out I took my whole customer database with me when I went? Would you be stunned by that? Wonder how could that happen? How could he do that? No, you're not, right? But these things happen, right? People walk off with this type of information, and sometimes it's just a matter of, I went to start a new job and I needed a client list to start from, right? That's why they hired me in the first place, is because I could bring it. Or, who knows, maybe it's, I found out that if I've got all these social security numbers and names from our system, I can sell $40 a piece, and I know how to do that. I got to make a mortgage payment, and I don't know how I'm going to make that. We don't know, right, what the scenario is, but these are things that have to be watched for and addressed, and there's a lot of ways you can do that, and some of them are technical solutions, some of them are administrative solutions, some of them are training solutions, some of them are policy solutions, right? So there's kind of a blend of things that you can do to help prevent stuff like this. Did any of you guys hear about the Fairview breach that happened in Minneapolis about weeks ago? Okay, so here's the scenario here. And see if you guys know of any similar stories around here. Fairview is a medical facility in Minneapolis. They had, so they're providing medical services, right? So they're collecting patient information, social security numbers, that kind of stuff. Fairview then takes that information and shared it with a vendor, right, who was doing some billing for them or some accounts receivable or, that kind of stuff. The vendor had an employee who put all that Fairview patient information on a laptop and then had the laptop stolen. So now we've got 16,000 patient records that got lost. Now, in this scenario, Fairview, vendor, employee, who gets in the most trouble? Fairview. The FBI is in there right now. They're investigating that. They're going to have a class action lawsuit, I'm sure, come out of that. It wasn't Fairview's fault. Everybody got my quotes? It wasn't their fault. But they're still going to get in the most trouble, right? The irony is I can't remember the name of the vendor. I was trying to remember who it was, but I can't. I definitely remember Fairview. Now what happens here is, again, show of hands, how many of you guys work for companies who are vendors of other companies? So you provide a service, you do something for another company. You got a couple. Okay, more than that. Do you know if your customers and your company, do you share confidential information? Do you know? A few do. Okay. Have you ever had any of your customers you share information with ask you how secure it is when it gets to you? No? That's why Fairview's in hot water, right? They asked, but they didn't ask well, and they didn't ask right, and they didn't make sure, right? So from a customer standpoint, and this is what you should expect if you're a vendor, but if you're the customer in this scenario, or you're a person, right, sharing your information with your eye clinic, right? How safe is my information when I share it with you? What do you do to protect my information? If you're a customer dealing with vendors, you have the opportunity to put in place what's called vendor risk management. This is where you're essentially giving them, you identify some things that you want them to do to protect your information, and then you give them a few options, give them those options, and then then they have to comply with that. If Fairview had done that, let's say that Fairview in their vendor risk management, if you're a vendor of ours, you cannot put our patient information on a laptop. Or, if you're a vendor of ours and you put it on a laptop, it has to be encrypted. Either of those two things. They may have, but they'd be defensible. Right now, they're not defensible. Right? You sick of hearing me say defensible yet? All right. So here's our 12. Does anybody have a vendor risk management program? Do you know? You ever heard of that? Okay. They're coming. So for those of you, especially in IT fields, because this will get dumped on you if you do these, if you work with customers. Because what your customer is going to do is they're going to come back and say, hey, can you give us some policies or prove that you're secure or something? It gets dumped on the IT department, so that's coming. So just be aware. There's good solutions to that, and it's not that complicated. But what they're going to do is they're going to come in and ask, and they're going to literally say, we share information. Can you prove to us somehow, show us something that says how secure it is when you have it? What are you supposed to do with that, right? But that's how it'll start, and then it'll get a little more intrusive from there. All right, we got 12 types of people. These are all our internal. I got them in 3 basic groups. The first group is internal people, right? Disgruntled employees, criminals, poorly trained, driven. Driven people, we love them. But they also can sidestep some policies, maybe, if it's causing them to push up too close to a deadline, or they think it's getting in their way. Maybe we'll just ignore that policy for now. HR, you ever see anybody ignore a policy? IT guys, you ever ignore policies? I don't expect you to answer that. It'd be fun if you did, though. People have this tendency to view security policy as a hindrance to the business or to them doing their jobs. If that's the case, you just have a bad policy. One of our, along with people being the biggest risk, one of our 10 principles is that businesses are in business to make money, right? We're really smart. We came up with that. Information security should not stop a business from making money. If we are, then we're doing it wrong. there are ways to have appropriate controls and still enable business. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here pretty quick. So this is Verizon, right? Everybody knows, let's say you're this guy. How well do you really know this guy? Trust him with your children? Trust him with your laptop, your cell phone, your social security number? One of the things that we hear all the time, and I love it when we do, we're a small company. We're a family. We know. We all know each other. We don't need policies. We don't need. We trust each other. Everybody's fine here. All right. How well do you really, really know that guy? Right? And are you willing to bet your entire business on it? Is really what it comes down to. All right, what do we got? Curious opportunist. This is more like me. I have an engineering background. I also have a business background, so don't throw me out quite yet. But the curious opportunist, if you're a technical person, right, I would bet you $1 that you like to poke around and see just how far you can get with stuff, right? So I used to work for a Fortune 500 company, and I figured out one day that I had access to the executive compensation. And that is really interesting to look at for a while, and then it makes you really mad at the same time. So but that was something I found that I had one day. I shouldn't have had that, but I did. And that was, a company with 15,000 people in it. We all know these types of people, right? I just said, all right, who's the most driven employee on your team or in your organization? You know who that is, right? Who's made me a little disgruntled? You know who that is. So you know for. All right, now these guys, this group is a group of people where they're not part of our organization, but we're dealing with them on a regular basis. There's a relationship there. We know who they are. I don't know, can you read my cat picture? He says I upgraded your RAM. How many of you guys are in companies where some function of your IT is outsourced? Okay. Do they have administrator level access? No? Most, so a couple no's, a couple yeses.
What's your definition of administrator level access? To a machine, yes. To the network, no.
If I'm in my office, my third-party office, can I get to your core servers and have deep access? Okay, couple yeses, couple no's. How about in HR or other areas of the company? Do you have vendors that have access to your employee records for, say, payroll? Do you outsource payroll? No? Those are, a lot of people do, right? Maybe not in this room. Maybe some of you guys, same companies, maybe outsource their payroll. Yeah. They have access to your company's information. They're a vendor, right? They're helping you do better business, right? But recognize that it is a risk, and that as a company, you need to be able to address that risk, right? Again, if your payroll provider gets hacked and your payroll information gets stolen and sold, and who's going to have to pay for identity theft, for notification? You guys heard of breach notification laws? Couple. Breach notification law basically says that if you lose my information, you have to tell me. If you're not sure, but you think you might have lost my information, you have to tell me. That's what Fairview's in the middle of right now, right? They have 16,000 people that they had to tell that they lost their information through a vendor. And there's state laws here, that say that you have to do that. You don't have a choice, right? Now, going back to our hospital, our patient where we emailed everybody, to let them know that their chemotherapy is going good. Technically, That is a breach. So by law, do you have to notify them that you breached their confidential information? Yeah. Does it happen? No. We're going to get to that in a little bit here too. All right, so there's our cat picture. Contractors, customers, those kind of things. All right, so what time we got? Oh, good. All right, and these are the outside guys. So we all know there's bad people out there, right? We assume that they're working for us or with us. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. But we know that there's bad people out there. And the opportunist one, we all get the first one, right? But the second one is tricky because I could just be surfing your website, just looking around, and I could stumble across a field I could use for a SQL injection attack. Or I could just be walking by your office, walking home someday, and see a garbage bag there with a whole bunch of paper in it and just pick it up and take it home. Maybe it's got records in it that shouldn't be in it. I don't know. It's just, maybe how many of you guys have well, I'll just ask it. How many of you have a policy at work? If you get up and leave your workstation, you have to lock your computer. So not very many. A few, though. You do it every time? Right? So it's human nature, right? We're going to forget. We're going to go, I'm just going to be there for a second. I'll come right back. But what if I'm walking by and you've got pulled up, if you're in HR or whatever, you're looking at a database. What if I just happen to walk by and it's a opportunity, right? Can't ever be traced back to me because it was your information. How would I don't have your level of access. But it's just an opportunity, right? And I took advantage of that. The activists, everybody's heard of Anonymous. We're sort of bored with Anonymous by this point. I don't know. But they're out there, they're growing. There'll be a new one. Yeah. I like this picture because it'd be nice if it worked this way, but it doesn't. All right, who's got my thumb drive? There it is. All right, a couple questions about thumb drives. He was the first one, right, to answer that first question. How many of you heard me when I said it was an encrypted thumb drive? That was a lie. It's not encrypted. It's just a thumb drive. How many of you believed me when I said it was encrypted? Right? Because why would you not? You had no reason not to believe me, really. But it's not. Anybody ever found a thumb drive? Anybody ever lost a thumb drive? I have children. I lose thumb drives, right? Among other things. They go missing, right? So how about this for a social engineering example? I take that thumb drive and two others like it. I put a virus on it. And then I get access to your building and I just leave them on, I drop one on the floor by the bathroom and I leave two on tables in the cafeteria. And then I walk out. What are people going to do with those? At least one of them, right? Two of the three might get thrown away, but one of the three, for sure, if not all three, are going to get plugged into your server, not your servers, but one of your computers on your network at some point, right? So has anyone in their corporate training ever had any mention of, hey, if you find a thumb drive, this is what you should do with it? That's good. Maybe. Now the question is that a smart business move? And that's a whole different discussion. But that's a potential solution to that problem, right? And that one's definitely growing in popularity. I'm guessing most of this room owns homes. How many of you realize that your mortgage broker person probably takes your information home with them on a thumb drive, just like that one? They're overworked, especially in the last few years, right? so people work from home. What's that? Oh, yes, it is. It absolutely is. Okay, so yeah, so if you don't have those kind of things, these are all pretty simple, basic concepts. You pick up a thumb drive, you have no idea what's on that thing. It could be your payroll for your company. It could be a Word document that your kid wrote, right? Could be a virus. There isn't a virus on that one, trust me. Foolproof, right? No. I did that one time and threw it back at me. Like, I want this, and chuck. All right, there's a thumb drive. All right, so how do we do it right? So if you understand a couple things, understand that there is a significant risk and that you get breached all the time. It's just a fact. It happens. The other thing I love is when companies tell us that they've never had a breach. What that means is they've never been in the paper for a breach, basically, right? It happens all the time. So understand that. Understand that your people, you can do your people a huge service by teaching them the right ways to handle information, not only for your company, but also for them individually. Because they're going to take what they learn from you and they're going to apply it at home as well. And so that will help not only your company, but it will also help and that's good. Make it personal to them at home, and then it will help catch on at work as well for those people that like to get around policies. And we've got ways to deal with that too. If you understand that this is a business issue and that people pose this risk, train those people. If you do that well, then you get to open up this whole, you can use all these other things like cell phones, right? If you have a really good security program, then opening up cell phones for use by employees might make really good business sense, and from a security standpoint, you might be able to justify it. I'm not saying for sure, but if there's a business case to be made, that's a way that it can be accomplished. So there's all kinds of examples like that. Facebook, social media, marketing. Marketing departments all over the world are trying to figure out how to leverage social media, right? But it's a security nightmare. But if you're addressing security right, then you might be able to leverage those things if it makes sense for your business and reduce those risks. Keep yourself defensible. All right, so our jigsaw puzzle. This is how we describe it, right? Most companies' information security program looks like a mess of puzzle pieces, right? And a puzzle piece is simply a control, like maybe it's a policy. Maybe it is locking the USB ports. That's a control, so that's one puzzle piece. Encrypted database maybe is another one. Maybe a security camera for some physical security. Key card entry or keyless entry. So those things are all puzzle pieces. Most companies just have them, right? Some of them make sense, some of them don't. Some of them, you'd be amazed, and I know it's happened to some of you in here, where you needed a control, so you bought something, and then you never used it, and it's still sitting on the shelf. Right. So the right way to do it is to look at your policies as the framework, right? That's the frame on the outside. And then we've got our box. That's our standard that we used to build our security program. It's our picture that we're looking at. And we got the framework, and then we know where the puzzle pieces fit. Now, I put a dog one in there for the cat haters, since I had a cat one. People gloss over this one pretty quickly. Think about your company. First off, do you have an information security program? Not an IT security program, but do you have an information security program? Maybe you do and you just don't know about it. That's its own problem. But if you don't know, then there's an issue. If you have an information security program, what standard was it built on? Is it just we fit in pieces when we need them, when a customer requests them or a regulator requests them? Or was it built on a standard? Was it built on ISO? Was it built on NIST? Whatever. But was it built on a standard, and what was that standard? If you can't answer those two questions, and your company possesses confidential information, which we all do, then you need to start, and that is where you start. Pick a standard and get buy-in from the top. The leadership has to care. There you go. All right, so back to this. This is really what we were talking about. We've been talking about policy and training and awareness, kind of in that training piece there. A couple things about us. One of the cool things that we do is this design your own. Let's say you are, you have an information security program, but you realize you could use some help with your training and awareness program, or just how do I make this interesting, because it's boring to talk to our employees about. How do I make this interesting? How do I make them care? How do I get policies written so that people no longer will go around? The biggest problem again, back to defending the company, if you have a policy but you don't follow it, meaning you know that people are going around the policy and you do nothing about it, are you in a defensible position? No. So you need not only to have the policy but enforce it. But we also realize, again, back to the businesses making money, there has to be a way for people who either can't, or from a business standpoint, we don't want to make them comply with the policy. We got 99 employees that we need to conform to this policy. We got one guy that we don't want him to, because he does better business if he doesn't have to. How do you make that work? It can be done. It's actually really not hard at all, but nobody knows how to do it. So you can find these on our website too, FRSecure.com. But it's kind of cool. You can just look through and just pick and choose things that you like, things that you don't. And then our security health checkup, that's for companies that are kind of have an established information security program where all they really need is somebody to come in and review it. And any good information security program, and you guys know this, if you set up the security, you really need somebody else to come make sure that it's right? You get that? That just makes sense, right? So that's what the security health checkup is. There we go. All right, contact information. So we got about 3 minutes for questions if you guys have any. Otherwise, you can go. Good? All right, if you'd like a copy of these, please come give me your card. We're not a sales organization. I'm not going to call you, to be honest. So if you want anything from us, please give us a call. And our partner down here is RK Dixon. I don't think I covered that. But RK Dixon can help facilitate those conversations, and we work fantastically well with RK Dixon. We really like working with them. So you can go through whoever your RK Dixon guy is or girl is to get to us. And then the FRSecure president is giving a talk at 12:30, and he is far more technical than I am. And he is going to talk about ways to secure not only your information, but also customer information if you're in that type of scenario. So that would be really good. So check that out at 12:30. Otherwise, feel free, come talk to us, pick our brains. We love to give information away for free. So.